June a year ago.
Yeah.
But what compelled you to go there?
From the very first second of the invasion, I was watching it 24 hours a day. I had Sky News playing on my phone next to my bedside, and even whilst I was sleeping, I was listening to everything that was going on. And it was Zelensky's call to kind of come fight, which first brought me. Um, but yeah, I understood the fact that I have no idea how to fight, and then therefore I wasn't going to last very long or be very useful to Ukrainians. So then, yeah, kind of started planning about how to actually get to Ukraine, and what the best way to help was. But there was no information back then on social media or on the internet at all on how to actually help out. Obviously, because they were busy fighting a war, so I didn't have time to update blog posts or social media on how you could volunteer in Ukraine. The only thing that I saw was on Facebook, and it said go to Lviv train station, and then there'll be someone there that will be able to guide you to a volunteering opportunity, and that's what I did. And yeah, that's how I ended up in Ukraine. The main push was probably actually seeing the images coming out of Bucha. Um, that's probably the thing that actually got me to get on the flight as a matter of urgency, rather than yeah, I hadn't previously come out. So I think Bucha was the main change agent for me.
So you left for Ukraine without knowing what you would do to be of assistance. Uh, on the flight to Ukraine and getting to
Yeah.
Lviv, did you ever ask yourself, "What the hell am I doing?"
No, because of what I saw on the news, it was like there was no option to not, because of the brutality of everything. And I actually remember now that my first idea, apart from the rebuilding of houses, was I was actually heading. Uh, what popped into my head was that these poor people in Bucha have to just keep digging these graves again and again and again. And one of the things that I was going over to do was to kind of give them a respite and take over from digging the graves for these people. That was one of the things that I remember seeing on the television. It was just so horrifying that just non-stop the digging of the graves for the, I think it was 1,300 people that were massacred in that small region of Irpin and Bucha and Fosterman. Yeah, which I only actually remembered a few months back when I saw once again about the digging of the graves, and it was a reminder, like, oh, that was one of the things I had initially come to Ukraine for.
Well, I think it's a remarkable story, Richard. Others who haven't yet made the step to Ukraine to volunteer and be of use, what would you advise them now? Is it still to go to Lviv? Is there still
Oh no,
a volunteer
very,
station there?
very handfully. I worked with a local Ukrainian to develop the website volunteeringukraine.com, and it's the only resource that's out there that very clearly gives you step by step, how to get to Ukraine, the visa process if you need one, accommodation of where to stay, every volunteering opportunity, who to contact, what their hours of work at are, all these places. So we've taken away any stress you could possibly have of coming to Ukraine, and what you actually need to do to start volunteering. So that's just volunteeringukraine.com, which I post a link to on a regular basis. But it's the easiest guide on the planet to get through. And every volunteering opportunity on there, I have been to in person firsthand, so that you know it's legit, and you'll get there and there'll be lovely people, not some scam or something like that. They're all real people. It's hard to know with the internet. So I make a point of individually verifying every single opportunity on there.
And tell me, Richard, What is your typical day like? Is it 20 hours a day or 24 hours a day?
It's every minute of every day, every waking minute of every day. I mean, I guess I am working in my sleep too, because I'm processing all of the work that's done throughout the day and kind of dreaming up new ideas of how to help me train. But yeah, the second I wake up, it's straight on Twitter to see what's happening and update everyone. And the last thing I do before going to sleep is Twitter. And yeah, every single point in between that is driving around Ukraine helping people, or being in the kitchen, or or just organising. So logistics. I've somehow become a logistics master, as every volunteer has when they entered Ukraine. It's nothing about logistics, and then after a week, you know how to get everything to every place. So yeah, it's crazy, but yeah, non-stop. But I like it. It makes me feel useful. I couldn't imagine taking a day off.
I love your videos. I always watch them. They are full of hope and love and enthusiasm. Michelle, you have a question for Richard. Go ahead.
Thanks so much, Alan. I'm curious, Richard, whether you knew much about Ukrainian dishes or food prior, and now what would be your favorite dish to either eat or cook, or both, either?
Yeah.
Richard, you may be having some. Oh, go ahead. Richard, your audio is coming in and out. I understand you're on the road. I get that. Just try again, and hopefully you heard Michelle's question. This is live radio brought to you by MriyaReport. It's global, and here we are talking to Frontline Kitchens, Richard of Frontline Kitchens, tens of thousands of miles from where I am currently. But we're going to let him get back into communication range, and then we'll continue. Carrie.
Hello, Alan. Just a very quick thing that's sort of a slight diversion, but it goes back to what we were talking about a couple of nights ago about journalism. So sorry, Richard, just a brief interlude, but I've just been quickly looking at what's sort of coming up, what the key things are on Twitter. I always have a look at what is coming up as sort of top, latest, whatever, because I'm interested to see where Ukraine might fit into that. And I was just looking at the fact that there's been a Channel 4 documentary which was looking at the from the perspective of the UK military forces that were attempting to assist in getting as many Afghan refugees who, in particular, were had British passports or were able to get passes into the UK. And I was just thinking about how, because it has had a major impact on people who've been watching it, and an ability to enable them to understand that story, that scenario. It seems to have had a really dramatic emotional impact on the viewers. And it just made me think again about what we were saying about journalism and the real story that is going on, but how it's just not hitting people. It's not hitting enough people what is really going on in Ukraine. And it just made me think, is who is out there maybe with the capability of producing something like this. I mean, Richard might even be coming across some of these people, but I would just love to have something like that would be able to be shown to, in my instance, obviously to the British public, to to enable them to have an insight to understand just what is really truly going on. And I just do believe that if they could have some form of insight, so many more people would be applying pressure to the situation. It was just something to throw in there, because obviously I know, your entire profession was based in journalism. So I just thought I'd share that with you.
Thank you, Carrie. Uh, I was just doing a couple of things there in the background, and trying to listen and not succeeding, but I caught a little bit of it. Journalism, getting the right stories out and engaging people so they know what Ukrainian people are going through every single day. We were talking about this just the other night here on Maria Report with Jason J. Smart, who's a journalist in Kyiv, and we were specifically talking about uh, the abduction, the forcible kidnapping of Ukrainian children, their deportation into Russia, far, far from Ukraine. And I, I simply said to Jason, this is a story that needs to be told, and it is now being more widely told. I understand that the BBC has run a radio story about it, and both Jason and I said, uh, you know, it's the kind of story that once written, once broadcast, because it's pretty easily followed, pretty easily reported. It is the kind of story that can catch fire, so it appears in many media outlets, and it's also tremendously meaningful, not only to the people of Ukraine, but to the world that is watching. Uh, I would say it's a piece of the puzzle that helps people understand what Russia is doing to Ukraine, whether they are blowing up dams or plotting about sabotaging a nuclear power plant, whether they are uh, terrorizing civilians in their homes or in the markets they go to every day to buy food, or bombarding power infrastructure or the railway through Ukraine. What Russia is trying to do is to fatally weaken Ukraine economically, industrially, and in terms of its people. In other words, every Ukrainian child stolen from Ukraine is part of the future Russia is trying to steal from Ukraine and from all of us. It's part of that picture the world needs to understand. Robin.
Yeah, I would like to talk about an article written by Marcy Shore, who teaches at Yale along with Timothy Snyder. But I think Richard is back, so I think I'm going to defer until we can talk to him. We had a question from a listener who wanted to know if Richard could tell us if he knows how much the water has receded in Kherson.
Hello. Yeah, so all of the places that we were visiting this week were from where the water had receded. But yeah, we were going into the gardens and homes of all of these people, and everything was just destroyed. And most of these people in these small villages they live off the land. They grow everything in their own back gardens. So there's complete devastation because the water is so contaminated. So they can't really grow anything safely in that area for a while. And everything that they had, they all had their own kind of water pumps at home to get fresh water from wells. Those were all destroyed by the floods. So yeah, the water's receded in all of the areas that we went to visit, but I don't know if it's receded from all areas. That answers that question.
Yeah, and as you're implying, that's only part of the issue. Once the water's gone down, then it's the issue of whether anything can grow and housing and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So it's only the first step.
Yeah, we saw one of the places we went to.
Robin, I think we are losing Richard's audio again, and it's because he's on the road.
After,
Yep.
yeah, in that same town, there was a house that was just completely gone because of flood. But it got so high, it just put a building. So that was just a pile of rubble on the ground. Some houses didn't even survive that load, just, water levels rising within the house. Yeah, some of these houses weren't built the best, and therefore just didn't survive in the slightest.
So, Richard, where have these people gone? Are many of them still in the area, or they've been evacuated? How are people?
Yeah,
How are people make living?
yeah, they're still in the area. Um, One of the big things initially when the dam broke was loads of people sent buses and buses down to Kherson to pick people up to take them to different parts of Ukraine, and no one got on the buses. Um, no one wanted to leave their homes. They wanted to wait for the water to subside and then go back in and fix them back up, because these people had survived, 7-8 months of occupations by the Russians. They weren't going to let a little bit of water scare them away. So everyone just kind of came into Kherson city, into lots of temporary accommodation. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it seems to me that Ukrainians have a particularly almost mystical connection to the land. Do you find that actually? I mean, this is second, third hand for me. Do you find that the attachment to the land that's unusual?
I just think it's so fertile here, the land. So it's, yeah, when you can grow anything very easily, it would be hard to not use it or not be attached to it. But yeah, each one of these people in these villages are all growing their own things, which you would find so much in England, apart from our lovely allotments and whatnot. But people don't tend to do it in their own back garden, at least from the bit that I am from.
I do envy the allotment system in England. I live in Brooklyn and I have no place to grow anything, and I'm a country girl, so it really bothers me sometimes. I wish we could introduce that here also.
You don't have community gardens in Brooklyn, Robin?
There are maybe one or two, and they're very tightly controlled. You can't just walk into them. You have to be part of the organization, and there's nothing anywhere near me. There was one where I used to live, and it was like an 8-year waiting list. So, unfortunately, no.
I can tell Richard is driving down the highway with his windows down, because I'm guessing it's probably uh, the summertime heat in Ukraine might be building up. Uh, is that the case, Richard? It's plenty hot in Ukraine right now where you are. Well, it's growing season in Ukraine, uh, but there's a lot of road noise. I don't want to ask Richard necessarily to roll up his windows. That would make for a hot, sweaty vehicle. Probably doesn't have air conditioning. It might, but it might not. Probably doesn't.
Hi there. Sorry, I didn't realise someone very smartly muted me from all of the road noise and whatnot. Yeah, the window is now up, so hopefully that sounds a little bit better.
Yes, but please don't get heat stroke at the same time.
No, the issue really is the fact that we're driving around in a van which is unbelievably old, and the engine heat is actually like we have the heater on full blast all the time. There's no AC in this old boy.
I didn't think there would be AC in that old van, Richard. So uh, we were talking a little bit about Kherson and the receding floodwaters in Kherson. Uh, have you seen damage inside the flooded out homes in Kherson? It's pretty. Um, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, so we were one of the first few in the boats that were going into the houses that's still flooded, and obviously now we're seeing them after flooding. And yeah, everything's devastated. People are just trying to pull out every bit of their home that survived into skips outside and kind of restart from scratch on what is remaining.
I mean, it's like any aftermath of a flood. This flood, of course, was a war crime committed uh, by Russia, caused and committed by Russia. They didn't have to blow that dam, and they were planning to do it, and they did it. Um, the other question I have, Richard, I saw a really interesting video of one Ukrainian farmer who had managed to uh, build by hand levees, essentially, a network of levees and trenches around his field where he was growing watermelons and escaped the floodwaters. Did a lot of Ukrainian farmers take such steps and save their farms?
No, I don't even know how the guy managed that because the floodwaters are up to 5 meters. So I saw a brief picture of it, but yeah, I can't imagine anyone else. I'm sure it was just that one man that managed it.
Yeah, I would imagine he was in an area that didn't flood to such a height because there's no way you could build walls high enough to keep that kind of water out. But it was wonderful that he managed to, and it was a lot of effort, obviously.
So, Richard, I want to let other people know about volunteering in Ukraine. I'm going to search for one of your tweets, put it up in the nest, so that anyone listening to us will have that resource at their fingertips. As Richard explained, it is the place to go. Uh, I believe it's Volunteer Ukraine. If I just got that name wrong,
Volunteeringukraine.com. Just volunteeringukraine.com. And yeah, if you search on my account, then if Elon lets you, of course, then you'll find lots of posts kind of stating about the website. Oh, it's actually also pinned at the top of my profile.
I'll find it, put it up in the nest. It is not. It is never too late to think about volunteering in Ukraine, frankly, and this is true no matter who you are, where you are, how old you are, or what you think you are capable of. We all have something that we can do. We all have energy to contribute to Ukraine. Uh, so, out of curiosity, Richard, uh, how old is your oldest volunteer, and how young is your youngest volunteer?
Oldest volunteer, geez, must be 90 or so. Little old Babusia from the Kherson region. Um, yeah, she's almost every single day helping cut up.
So, I hope everyone heard Richard say that. A 90-year-old volunteer, a Ukrainian babushka who's working every day.
Carrots with the mum.
You were just cutting in and out there, Richard. So, how young is your youngest volunteer?
I believe about 5 years old. Came with her mum, so very sweet. And each time there's a young volunteer, I make sure to give them one of the toys at Svetlana Knits as a thank you so much for everything they've done.
So if you are between the ages of 5 and 90, and you have been thinking about volunteering in Ukraine, volunteeringukraine.com is the place to go to find out what you can do. I'm going to throw a tweet up in the nest about that in just a moment's time here. But stop and think about that. You only have to be between the ages of 5 and 90 to volunteer effectively in Ukraine. And, maybe you will end up in a non-air conditioned van with Richard driving who knows where from one undisclosed location to another.
I even heard, Alan, from Ukrainian business people. I mean, I heard someone reporting them. I didn't personally hear from them, but saying that, even people who are coming just to spend a few days and spend some dollars or some, whatever, bringing money into the economy, that's also very much welcomed. Obviously they don't want tourists showing up in Bakhmut or whatever, but in the western part of Ukraine they're still open for, especially they're still open for business. And just coming in with uh, helping the Ukrainian economy is also a thought. Obviously if you can volunteer and help, that's even better, but that was what was told.
Uh, I think I heard the same thing, as a matter of fact, Robin. Let's go to Brian and then see what the road noise is from Richard. Brian, go ahead.
Uh, hey, Alan. Hey, guys. Good to talk to you again. And hey, Richard. Thank you for coming here. I've been following your account. And I love the posts that you do and the updates that you do from. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. And I just had a question. So, well, first of all, I can co-sign on that volunteering in Ukraine site. I've been poking around on that site periodically over the past few months. And I love how well it's done. I love how well it's organized. I love how the frequently asked questions are already right there so that people can have a sense of what they can do and what the paperwork is required. I think they actually even go into some discussion of visa requirements because that's a natural question when you're entertaining going over there and doing something like this. So I love how proactive that site is in terms of helping to lay out, the particulars of making a volunteer experience a reality. I was just curious from Richard, you know, and I apologize if you've already covered this since I'm just getting into this space just now, but uh, I'm curious if there's like a common theme because it probably comes up right when you meet these people and you're like, why are you here? Where are you from? Okay, well, why are you here? What drove you to go to such lengths to come over here from potentially across the Atlantic Ocean to a country that you may not even necessarily had spent any time thinking about before this invasion started, and yet you're here. Is there a common thread of reasons? Of why people are there. There's probably some that people have family there or distant relatives there or just took someone totally random. Help me understand what the reasoning you're hearing with these people that come all the way to visit you and help you.
Yeah, the majority of people just think in the exact same way as what I was saying, is they can sit around and watch the genocide continuing to unfold from afar, and everyone feels very helpless before they get here, and then when they arrive in Ukraine, they feel like all of their worries have just fallen away, and they can finally actually do something of meaning and difference. And to the Ukrainians, it means the absolute world. The fact that people are coming from all around the world. So yeah, even if you don't feel like you're that productive when you're here, if you're not the quickest carrot chopper in the West, just know the emotional impact you're having on these people. The fact that you're willing to fly all the way here to help them out.
Do the volunteers express? Are there? I'm sure there are some things that they find that they didn't expect, or they were surprised by one thing or another. Or what are some things that these volunteers are really, compared to what they expected to find versus what they did find? Are there what what are some things that might surprise a volunteer who shows up there from the U.S., for example?
I think the biggest shock, and everyone has this, is they turn up in Lviv expecting to see, missiles flying down the city in a pile of ash, people screaming, and in reality, it's just a normal, beautiful European city with incredible architecture and the most amazing bars and restaurants you could ever imagine, and every other building, every other unit is a restaurant or bar. I think it has one of the highest concentrations of restaurants and bars around a single square in all of Europe. And yeah, it's just a complete normality of Lviv. It is an incredibly safe place. And everyone is shocked to see that. They wonder where the war is.
I've heard that the entire downtown Lviv smells like high quality coffee too. Sounds like a place for me.
Yes, the coffee is so good, and there are multiple coffee factories there.
Can I jump in and ask Richard a question? Hey, Richard. I just
Yeah, please go ahead.
wanted to know, are most of the volunteers through an organization, or do you find, what do you find the most of? Like, are most of the volunteers going through organizations or just independently?
I don't think we've had a single volunteer yet from an organisation. Everyone comes independently after finding us on Twitter or on volunteeringukraine.com.
So, okay, let me phrase that differently. Are they signing up with organizations there? They might come independently, but are they working on behalf of organizations once they get there, or working independently, just volunteering, hopping around, doing their own thing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, they can go to whichever organisations that they want. None are kind of signing any contracts with places, or no one has any commitment to any specific location. They just do as they please and go where they feel the need is. And yeah, that's the nice thing, is there's no pressure. Do whatever you like and however you want to help. If you want to go play with some dogs one day, you can. If you want to cook the soldiers the next, you can. Or if you want to do some net making, the world is yours.
So, just a quick note to listeners. Now, the very first tweet in the nest is your link to volunteering Ukraine. Check it out. Think about what you can do, and remember, the youngest volunteer working with Richard is 5 years old. The oldest is 90 years old. So if you're between the ages of 5 and 90, uh, and think there's something you can do, or maybe you doubt there is something you can do, take a look at volunteering Ukraine, and make a decision to help in some way. Make a decision to help in some way. Uh, it's it's a website I'm going to be spending some time on tonight, Robin, after our shift is done. And I
I
like
I
it.
have I have been on that website. Yeah, it's. I hope you'll continue to co-host from Lviv if you end up there.
I would, it would be a dream to co-host from Ukraine, Robin. An absolute dream to co-host from Ukraine. It would be probably the best thing I've ever done in my life. Well, I'll say the third best thing. I can think of a couple of two other things I've done that not even this would exceed. But I'm going to look at it. I know I can't get there until September at the earliest, but We also know the need will be as great in September as it is today. And it's a need for people, not just a need for weapons and humanitarian supplies. It's a need for people because when you or I make the decision to volunteer in Ukraine, it is another way of letting Ukrainians know the world is on their side. Uh, so one person at a time who says, I can volunteer for a week or 10 days or 2 weeks or a month, and to go to Ukraine and stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukrainians fighting against Russians to free their country, to fight against genocide. I can just imagine the I can just imagine the feelings that Ukrainians have when they see someone who doesn't have to go to Ukraine and do something that will be of value instantly and for the rest of everyone's lives.
Yes, it's so true. Richard, are you still with us? Well, let me just ask a question. If Richard, if you can hear, we'll love to hear the answer. I seem to remember that you have at least one or two volunteers who have basically signed on for as long as you need them. I'm wondering about how long people tend to stay, and the how up looks like we lost him. All right. Oh, that's a shame. Well, maybe he'll be back.
He'll be back.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to take this moment while hopefully he's reconnecting and just let everyone know, perhaps you've heard, there's been an awful lot of heat and panic about the situation at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, and it is obviously it's a very serious situation. But it's important to know what that situation really is. Tomorrow at MriyaReport, we are going to have on two experts in this issue. And the print is so small, I'm having trouble reading it. But it'll be Monday, July 3rd, Eastern Time at it's 2:30. Kiev time 21:30. Pacific time, 11:30. And there's Eugene Swageris, who's a professor of nuclear engineering systems at, I think is it Cambridge? Yeah. And Mark Nelson, who's also at Cambridge. These are two experts who can really explain to us in detail what the situation is, what we need to know, what we should worry about, and what does not need to be worried about. So this is definitely appointment radio if you can possibly make it 2:30 Eastern time. I'm sure it'll be very worthwhile to listen to.
Yeah, remember, folks, MriyaReport is live radio, live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I call it radio because that's how I think of MriyaReport. I know it's Twitter, but it's really radio. I am sure that tomorrow's session with Mark and Eugene will also be archived at Spotify. So if you go to Spotify and search MriyaReport, you can tune in to all kinds of interviews that have occurred here. Interviews with Thomas Tyner, Ben Hodges, Mick Ryan, Chuck Ferrer, Doug London, Nuno Felix, all military experts. You can tune into interviews with the deputy mayor of Kherson, the CEO of the Ukrainian railway, uh, members of the Ukrainian Rada, that is their legislature, uh, all kinds of interviews that will give you information you cannot get any other place. And therefore, it'll give you an understanding of Ukraine and what is happening there today that you cannot get any other place than MriyaReport. So remember, it's go to Spotify, search for MriyaReport, check out the archive, be with us tomorrow. If you can't listen on your phone, you can listen by going to MriyaReport.org, tapping on the listen button. But before you do that, I'd encourage you to tap on the donate button. We even have a live stream on YouTube. So there are so many ways you can listen to Maria Report. You are not restricted to Twitter. Not everyone has a Twitter account. So those of you who know someone who doesn't have a Twitter account, send them to YouTube, send them to Spotify, send them to MriyaReport.org. They can still listen live and learn. Robin?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I am not going to be able to listen to this live, and I will definitely be checking out the Spotify recording later on in the day. So, yeah, and also you can also listen on the Twitter app on a laptop too. Again, you can't interact, but you can listen. And I'm told, although I haven't looked at it myself, that that over on YouTube there's quite a lively conversation that goes on through text messaging back and forth. So you're not connected to the space over here, but there's a lot of interaction that goes on over there too. So that's another option for people who don't have Twitter on a phone.
Can I just add one thing before I finally go to sleep? Because you woke me up.
Yes, please do. It's
No,
late.
Robin, you
I'm
woke me
sorry,
up.
Axel.
Because it's
I'm sorry.
no,
What did I do?
no, it's so sweet. It was so nice. It's very funny. Eugen Schwagerhaus. His name traces back to a place right back in the center of the most free place people of Jewish descent could have had. Ostpreußen, Eastern Prussia. Today, the occupied oblast of Kaliningrad. Schwägerau. It is the place where someone's Schwager, the guy who is married to your sister, quite literally, was born. Across the river, Schwägerau, Schwageraus, Eugene
Very interesting.
Schwageraus, and that's in what is today occupied Kaliningrad, right back in the bloody center of it. This is where it comes from. By the way, may I highlight this? This is the region, because Eastern Prussia, thanks to Immanuel Kant and the Enlightenment, was the birthplace of what then became the home of Jewish people across Central and Eastern Europe, Russia and the likes. Because they fled from pogroms in Russia and Poland into Eastern Prussia, into German territory, where they lived for hundreds of years, became part and parcel of the culture, defined culture with others, made Germany what Ukraine is now and can be in future. Germany should learn from this. Germany should learn that this diversity, that capability, which is vested in so many different cultures, is the main propellant for growth, learning, and a desire for innovation. Eugene Schwageraus, professor of nuclear engineering at one of the two relevant universities in Britain, is one of those who descend from those who benefited from that openness in enlightenment, which was once German.
Thank you, Axel. That's so interesting. You know, I've read about this through Jewish history, but I never connected it to Kaliningrad. Very interesting. Yeah, and as you're saying, Ukraine, that
Königsberg,
one of Ukraine's.
please, Königsberg. If you say
I'm
Kaliningrad, it
I'm sorry.
makes it makes my intestines revolt, revulse, and split.
100% Königsberg. um, Now you got me. Oh, what was I saying? Oh, I mean, yeah, this is one of the strengths of Ukraine that people outside have sometimes have difficulty understanding or even acknowledging. It's a really organically multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-linguistic place, and that's part of once the corruption is dealt with completely, which they were doing a good job on already. It's Ukraine is going to take off like none of us are going to be able to believe it. Even those of us who know it's going to happen, it's going to be a powerhouse in Europe. And as you're saying, a lot of it has to do with its with the diversity.
And by the way, funny enough, for those of us who actually have listened to German comedy in the 1970s and 80s, you will remember Insterburg, because Schwägerei is from the district, Kreis Insterburg. It is at the Pregel, the most important, rivulet there.
And I'm afraid that's something I missed. I remember I remember some nasty jokes about certain people living in the north that you wouldn't want to know about, but I don't remember those. I guess I was actually I didn't watch television when I was in Germany. Funny, strangely enough. By the way, Axel, a little factoid: the word in Yiddish, "schwieger," which is Schwager, it means your father-in-law. Oddly enough, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, because that's where it starts.
Oh
Actually,
no, no. Oh, actually, I take it back. It means
yeah,
mother-in-law. A
it means
Schwer is the father-in-law. The Schwieger is the mother-in-law.
Schwiegermutter. Schwieger, Schwiegermutter. Schwieger is the short form of Schwiegermutter. We have this in German as well.
Ah, right, right. That's right.
Schwager
All coming
is
back.
the man who is wedded to your sister.
Ah, that didn't come through to Yiddish. I think. Yeah,
Oh, it
that's right.
actually
Now,
exists in Old Yiddish.
Yeah, it could be. No, my German has gotten so rusty. I don't remember any of it anymore. But thank you for reminding me.
We are on the same path.
Absolutely. So, Alan, it looks as though we've lost Richard completely, huh?
Yeah, we know he's driving, and as he comes back into signal, I'm pretty sure he'll rejoin us. When he first joined us, he said he had about 3 hours to go in his journey, and that we would help him stay awake at the wheel. So hopefully he'll come back when he reconnects with a signal. And he could be anywhere on the road in Ukraine. We don't know where. He also keeps it a secret. So hopefully Richard of Frontline Kitchens will be back with us.
Yeah, it's interesting. You wouldn't think that the fellow delivering food would be part of operational security, but obviously he is too, and I'm glad he takes it so seriously.
And he does, as we all do. Uh, so we have talked a little bit about this earlier tonight. Robin had a moment of silence for Victoria Amelina, who died today, a victim of the Russian missile strike in Krasnotarsk. Um, She was an award-winning Ukrainian writer, and also was investigating war crimes in Ukraine. And she was in the wrong place at the wrong time in Krasnotarsk, uh, but hosting lots of writers from Colombia in South America, and I would hope that that they acknowledge first of all her hospitality and generosity in hosting them, and secondly, bring news of what Russia is doing to people in South America. And unfortunately, I think that people in South America are not engaged in what's happening in Ukraine, and they need to be.
You're 100%. You know, this actually feeds into this article that I read by Marcy Shore. You know, one of the issues is trying to get people to connect with what's going on in Ukraine, and it's very easy when you're looking at numbers. And there's that, I think it's a spurious attribution, but there's that supposed quote of Stalin's that that one person is a crime, 1,000, or a statistic, or something like that. But yeah, when we see she was in the same pizzeria that our friends Roman and Lily Truchemitz were having pizza. He was back from the front lines for a day, and it. I think for all of us, we sort of, to some extent, we feel we start to feel like we have family there, as we know these are people we know, and that's what more people have to understand. They have to be able to see the individuals who are being affected by this, and the terrible, terrible loss that each life is for Ukraine and for the world. Um, it's if Victoria's death, well, how will I say this? If it can touch some people in South America and make them understand a little bit more why they should be supporting Ukraine and how important it is. It won't make things any better, but it will be another gift that she gives to the world, even in her death. That doesn't, if you know what I mean. I hope that doesn't sound too, you know. Anyway, back to you, Alan.
I think I understand exactly what you mean, Robin, and I think you are completely right. That it's the strangest thing in the midst of tragedies, and and what Ukraine is going through right now is a tragedy that did not have to take place, but it is taking place. But in the midst of tragedies, individual stories and individual connections make a difference, and these connections bring that story to people who don't think they need to care. But when they see a piece of news, when they hear of a volunteer in Ukraine, or sadly, when they hear of a person who has been killed in Ukraine, fighting side by side with Ukrainians, they stand up and they pay attention. And what we hope is that they finally see and understand Ukraine is fighting for every single one of us. Ukraine is fighting for every single one of us fortunate enough to live in a free democracy. Ukraine is fighting for every single one of us who do not yet live in a free democracy, because Ukraine is showing the way. They are helping democracies return to their values, and they are helping countries that are not yet democratic and free think about a future they could have, even if they have to fight for it the way Ukraine is fighting for it. That's what I think. It it uh, it's a comment that's discardable, frankly. But I really do think Ukraine has given all of us a turning point in how we look at history, how we look into the future, and how we look into ourselves and decide what we have to do as individuals.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Alan. It's very, you said that very well. We were talking before about what makes Ukrainians different, for example, than their opponents. And I mentioned that there are three different polls that came out, results came out within the last few days. The first one was really heartbreaking. It's that 78% of Ukrainians have close friends or relatives who've been injured or killed in this war, and each of them is an average of seven people they know who were killed or wounded, which is a staggering statistic. Now, but the two other polls show why Ukraine is going to win this war just on a morale basis. Between 74 and 90% consider the future rather promising. In the middle of this, 84% still oppose any territorial concessions, even if it makes the war last longer and poses other threats. What a testament to the human spirit, Alan. I mean, can you imagine? It's the only thing I can think of that sort of comes close to this is the Battle of Britain, and Britain under the Blitz. The fact, and you see when we look at these frontline soldiers who put up TikTok clips, the resilience of Ukrainians is just, it's just staggering. I'm in such awe, and these are just regular people. These aren't supermen. These are normal people like our friend Roman. I think before the war, I think he was a real estate agent. I don't something like that. And now he's an incredible soldier, and he's upbeat, and it's, as I said, this is when you can contrast that to what we see what we see on broadcasts and what we see of Russian POWs. The attitude is so different. It's, as I said, it's a testament to the Ukrainian spirit, and it illustrates how different Ukrainians are from their opponents.
And I think that's a very good point, Robin. The Ukrainian military, which is, I'm going to say, roughly 6 times the size it was 500 days ago. But the Ukrainian military is made up of ordinary people called upon to do extraordinary things, no different than our fathers and grandfathers or cousins, whoever we have in our family who served in the military or who served in the Vietnam War or the Korean War or World War II. I'm speaking as an American, obviously. But these are ordinary people called upon to do extraordinary things. You know, last night, for some reason, and there's no reason to it, uh, I opened a box of
Was there a
photographs left
rhyme?
to me by. No, there was no wine.
No, was there a rhyme to the reason?
Oh, well, sure. There's always a rhyme to the reason, Axel.
Please
But
carry on. I was silly. I apologize, Adam. It just sounded so nice when you said it. I had to add it in. I'll go sleep. Thank you very much.
no, 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 don't go to sleep. Just stay awake for 30 more seconds. So, what I was doing last night, I opened a box of photographs that had been left to me by my father. And these are the tiny uh, snapshots with scalloped edges from the 1940s. They're gray or sepia, and they're fading. And these are his photographs from World War II. And there's my father in a Jeep in front of Notre Dame Cathedral. But the more meaningful photographs I saw were my father with his gear, his duffel bags, waiting. Uh, I think he was, I can't remember where he was trained, but uh, I think it was in New Jersey, in Massachusetts. And then there is a photograph of my father on a troop boat heading across the Atlantic to Europe. It's an amazing photograph. It's absolutely packed with ordinary people, young men. My father was 19 years old. Uh, and there he is in his uniform, and he's handsome and alive and vibrant as he was through 98 years of his life. But I just want to say, Robin, these are ordinary people, just like the ordinary people in any war that has ever been fought, who are called upon to do extraordinary things. And this is what is happening in Ukraine today. Ordinary Ukrainians like you and like me, called upon to do extraordinary things, whether they are soldiers or whether they are aid workers and first responders, or whether they are citizens simply trying to bring their families up in the midst of war. That's why I wanted you to stay awake, Axel.
You are an astonishing, absolutely marvel. I mean, there's a keystone in what we do here in MriyaReport, and that is bringing together exceptional people, subject matter experts. And there are some people who are just simply plain, I don't know, exceptional. So if you in the audience are wondering who I'm talking about, then it's my friend Alan. Because he's not just well coiffed, as David always says. He is an institution and a voice. He is kind, incisive, relentless, capable, and he has the sense to display both nuisance and absolutely relentless incision when fact needs to be brought forward. Alan, I'm just exceptionally proud that you're doing what you're doing. Thank you. I'll go to sleep. It's a privilege.
Thank you, Axel. Thank you. Sleep well. Thank you for those kind words. But the most important thing for everyone to understand is I am ordinary. Ordinary, ordinary, ordinary.
Are you from
Just like you.
Maine? Of course, you will say this until the cows come home. Do you actually have cows there? Is it just, I mean, or is it somebody else in Vermont doing the cattle thing for you? Come on, you're not ordinary at all. You're exceptional
Uh,
in your ordinariness, and that is the key
Axel,
thing.
Axel, he's a maniac. You know that. He comes from Maine. He's a maniac.
The maniac is mainlining. Okay, fine, fair enough. We got him. I go to sleep. Thank you very much, Alan. Robert, please continue teasing him.
Thank you, Axel. Sleep
I'll do
well.
my best. Sleep well, Axel.
Yes, we have cows, dairy cows. Uh, so on to Will and then to Sean, please.
Well, I'm going to say good morning, Alan and Robin, because it's, of course, the morning show for me at 8:35 a.m. in where? Where am I?
The
The
workers'
The
workers'
paradise.
paradise.
That is correct. That is correct. Now, good luck for Axel going to sleep. I see he signed off, but I was going to set him off again. So what Robin said before is it's this theme that keeps popping up to me, and you touched on it too, Alan. And I think MriyaReport should consider doing a regular segment called "Why They'll Win." And there's two things that popped up this morning in your discussion, since I've been listening about why they'll win, and the what you just said there, the resolve of the Ukrainians. You compared that to the Battle of Britain, essentially the British resolve to hold out during the bombardment and preparation for invasion there by the Germans. And I don't want to belittle what Britain did at the time, but I think Ukraine is probably have even more resolve in that than that. In the poll, as the polling shows, not only are people resolved to overcome the bastardry that's going on there, they also have a clear vision of the future. And you talked about the fact that earlier in the day that the highest growth rate since 1992 onward if you looked at all the European countries, the highest GDP growth rate for Ukraine. I mean, they've really taken this opportunity bit by the in their teeth in relation to what they've done since '92, all the modifications to corruption, the kind of thing they're really having a go at being successful, and that and they lived so long with the Soviet Union and Russification of their country and all that during the Soviet period, and even before, the Crimean Tatars and everything. That I think their experience with Russia through this long period of time probably gives them even a higher level of resolve to succeed and hope for the future than the British had during the Second World War. But it's not a contest. But the other thing that made me think about the things you could talk about why they'll win. You've heard that an army goes to war on its belly, and if you contrast frontline kitchens work to make sure that people don't just have some calories to put in their belly, but they have some calories to put in their belly that is something they recognize, something that they actually enjoy tasting of, something that gives them what Robin and others were talking about in relation to the things that food does for you beyond just feed your belly, that make you feel things and remember things. And that is one of the things that's one of the reasons why they'll win. And if you contrast that with the news as of 4 hours ago, I'm reading Chris Owicki's excellent piece on Prigozhin's empire. Prigozhin's empire was primarily food service, as you know, and then a media empire, which his troll farms came out of. And I'll note that since the mutiny slash almost coup, that those two companies, Concord Group and his media empire, are being systematically dismantled already. And I mean, this could be a big deal for morale, because morale has been pretty shitty. We understand on the Russian side, based on some of Prigozhin's work, basically that now think of the scale of this. It's too bad Richard's not here, or he is here. Think of the scale of this. Prigozhin's Concord Group had a $9.6 billion US contract. How much food can you buy with $9.6 billion? So they had the largest contractor to the MOD to provide food. Also, they stand alone as the most sued contractor of the MOD for quality supplying Russian food contaminated with bacteria, insects, worms, scams such as substituted ingredients. Can you imagine and the state of the food if you look at it? Woo! So they had a $9.6 billion to produce rubbish, basically, for the Ministry of Defense, which is why troops at the front line regularly, when they post these complaint videos or their family do, they complain about lack of food, lack of water. So basic sustenance. Plus, they're not getting anything that looks like comfort food. I can tell you, it looks pretty horrid. And having been in remote locations in Russia when it's sometimes very difficult to get food for the food service, I look at this meal that's on this plate and I go, "Yep, I've kind of been offered that one day, but not day after day." And it didn't have maggots in it. So um, I am struck by the fact that things are why they'll win is that they have people who care about them on the other side. And not only was Wagner feeding meat people into the slaughter in Bakhmut and other places, he also has been profiteering, of course, off of providing rubbish food for a $9.6 billion contract. But the icing on the cake here is even that rubbish food is going to be removed and disrupted because that company was shut was and this is so Russian. This is so Russian. The managers who fired all those people yesterday called them in and gave them verbal resignation letters because in Russia, when you want to go complain about the fact that you're not getting paid your severance paid and you were sacked without notice and all these things, they want to see your resignation. There's a lot of bureaucracy, and they want to see your resignation letter. And it is more difficult for you to prove if you've been given a verbal resignation. So, sure, the company's required to give you a written resignation, but when they don't, the onus is on you to basically solve all the problems. So, food disruption at the front is almost certainly going to occur at some level because the largest contractor being taken away is not nothing. Plus, you have all of the folks that are now on the street without a job in Russia, in Concord Group, and in the media empire that all have now been sacked as of the 1st of July. These folks were, they were supposed to hand over control on the 15th of July, but in fact, they've just told them, "Not, you're all dismissed now. They're all gone." And imagine swapping out your entire catering contract for most of the MOD in that is inside Ukraine. Imagine swapping that out with 2 days' notice to who knows who. I mean, imagine if we told Richard, your entire supply chain and all your employees are going to be gone, and we still want you to knock out 20,000 meals a day at Frontline Kitchen, and you have 3 days to reorganize. It would be catastrophic. And, this is going to be catastrophe that is actually good for Ukraine, but incredibly bad for the Russian side. So, why they'll win today, the two tick marks on why they'll win is because they've got people caring about them and trying to feed them things to boost their morale on one side, and we're going to go from bad morale and bad food to no food on the other side as of today.
Will, I would just point to you, maybe Richard can even move this up in the tweets. Something about a year ago, Richard got hold of a bunch of Russian rations, and he opened them up on film and reviewed them. It was don't drink coffee while you're watching this. I would have choked to it. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Thank God he didn't actually eat any of it because I'm not sure he'd still be with us. But anyway, Richard, if you hear me and you're able to move that up again, I think everybody could use a good laugh about Russian field rations again. And with that, I think we'll move over to Sean.
Thank you. I just want to share that I don't jump in the MriyaReport very often. I just want to share that I've been here a week in Ukraine and volunteering for Frontline Kitchens. Can someone acknowledge with a thumbs up or something that you can hear me?
Yep, loud and clear, Sean.
Great. I'm actually sitting outside my hostel because I get a better reception here. I'm here. I burnt myself out the first week I was here. I got here thinking, yeah, I can do this. I'm ex-military. It's a different situation to what I'm used to. I'm used to just going in, handling shit, and getting on with it, pardon my French. And coming here now, I burnt myself out in the first week I got here, which was a week past Friday. And I'm finding it extremely hard. I came here, I was not drinking from April. I got here, I got absolutely hammered the first night I got here. I got lost, couldn't find my hostel. Was not used to Ukraine because it's the first time I've been here. I got really drunk. I feel really bad about that. I walked so far that I had blisters on top of my blisters. I took 3 days out over the last 3 days just to recover, because I'm no use to nobody unless I am able to recover and get back to who I am. But this is a whole complete new setting for me, coming here to volunteer. And I just say hi to Richard, and everything he does is amazing. I've been there, I worked there. I took 3 days out to try and fix my feet because I can't stand on them, couldn't walk on them. Today was the first time that I actually felt that I could walk again because I literally had blisters on my feet. I had to go get new shoes, new flip flops, and blah blah blah. I had to change hostels because I had a problem with the first hostel. I'm not sure that anybody understands just how this is in the military. When I were serving, it's all organized. It's all it's how can I say it's all regulated, and you know what you're doing. I came here as a volunteer after being out of service for like maybe 10, 15 years, approximately. Um, I'm finding it extremely hard. I feel so guilty that I've missed 3 days. 3 days, 3 whole days with not going to frontline kitchens just because my feet were in bad shape. I went to a military hospital, not far from where I am now, in a new hostel. This first hostel was absolutely terrible. Thanks to my wife, she directed me to a new one. Thank God. Um, Not everybody here is as, how could I say, as accepting as you would think, but most people are. Um, I have found this so hard because it's not what I'm used to. I'm used to being so organized and regimental, and this being on my own, coming to Ukraine and volunteering is not like being in the army at all. I will say that. Um, if somebody's going to talk, let me know and I'll shut up.
Actually, Sean, I don't want you to shut up, but I want to say thank you for being willing to go and volunteer. Being in a new country where you probably don't speak Ukrainian, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, it's hard. It's very hard. I have lived in two foreign countries in peacetime when I spoke some of each language, and it was still exhausting. And give yourself some time. Be gentle with yourself. Give yourself some time to get acclimated. You're there, and I'm sure you'll be able to make quite a contribution. Just be kind to yourself. Give yourself a few days to get settled again. It's tough, and I'm so glad you called. Now I don't want you to shut up. I'll go back to you now. I just wanted to say that it's you've done a very positive thing, and you'll get back on your feet again.
Yeah, yeah. I met a couple of guys tonight, and from Frontline Kitchens, and I spoke to them. I told them how hard I was actually finding this. It's one thing being in the army and having everything organized for you, or you follow orders and it's all set up for you. You get your orders, you comply to them, you do exactly what you're told. It's totally different setting compared to being in the military to being a volunteer on your own. I found this so bloody hard, and you're right. You are absolutely right in what you just said. I know very little Ukraine, yet I have learned a very lot in the last few days. Just with spending time with a couple of guys at the hostel, the new hostel I'm in. but I feel so guilty that I haven't been to FLK in the last 3 days, but I'd be absolutely no use. I said this to guys tonight when I seen them. I felt so guilty that I couldn't walk because my feet were, like I say, I had blisters on my blisters. And if I can't stand and I cannot sit without my feet hurting, I'm absolutely no use to anybody unless I am physically and mentally stable myself. And
Yep.
I, yeah,
A
yeah,
100%, 100% what you're saying. And I would drop the feeling guilty. You, you're in a physical situation now that you can't be working right now. There's no guilt in that. You need to just give yourself some time, get better, and then I can tell from the way you're talking how much you want to help, and you'll be able to do that once you get your get your feet healed and feeling you'll become more settled there, and you'll know your way around more. And it's very hard in a foreign country, even in peacetime. So just give yourself a little time. And I know Richard, the people at Frontline Kitchen, from what I've seen, are really a very nice, supportive bunch. So I, you know, I hope you'll have a very good experience with them. Just give yourself a little time.
I do. I totally. They're absolutely the best bunch of people that I have ever met in my life. I've now recovered. My feet are fine. I had to take 3 days out for them to heal. It's been so hard though because I feel so inadequate. I'm not feeling that bad now because they feel better. I was out tonight, today even, our time in Ukraine. I've been drinking iced lattes because it's so hot here, and you've no idea how much heat there is here with the temperature, and the guys that are working there and the girls is absolutely phenomenal. Um, I just want to talk about how different it is from being in the military and following orders compared to being on your own and trying to navigate your way around a situation and a country and the language and everything, which I did not. I tried to, but I did not actually. Um, I am trying to find the right words. I'm Scottish. I find the wrong words all. I find the wrong words all the time, and yeah. Tomorrow I'm good to go, and I've recovered. My feet are healed, but I cannot sleep. I've seen your space. I've seen your volunteers. I know Richard's listening. I just didn't expect it to be this hard. Seeing Richard's tweets, I was up the other night, seeing him in Kherson or Kharkiv. Beg my pardon. I am totally winging it here because I've not been able to get my tweets because Twitter's been a nightmare, as everybody knows. Um, it is so bloody hard. And tomorrow I know I can go back to work with FLK and with the animal shelter that I've been with and the dog that I made the connection with up there. And it's just, I can't emphasize enough or explain enough how hard it is just being so used to being told and commanded what to do from being in Civvy Street, as we call it in Britain, back to Civvy Street to go back into volunteering, but not in a regimental way. And I don't think people actually appreciate just how hard it is. I've had a few, I would say, right, pardon my French, but I'm going to say I've had a few fuck ups. I've had at least two fuck ups since I've been here. I've realised a lot about myself that I did not even know, which I am astonished at and surprised at. I've got to give a shout out and a thanks to my wife, because she noticed before me, which I appreciate, and brought it to my attention. And the guys up there are absolutely fabulous. I mean, there's Sonia, Bill, I could bang on all about names all you want, but the thing that gets me is I felt so inadequate in the last few days, with messing up over the last week. Because I went out, I got absolutely hammered. I got pissed on the first night I got here, drunk. I mean, yeah. I got lost. I couldn't find my accommodation. I did not take the time to set up a SIM card. I did not set up time to set my Google Maps to get where we were going, so I got lost a few times, quite a few times, walking around. I walked about five. I got dropped off in a taxi 5 kilometers away from where my hostel was. So I walked halfway back. Um, I found it really hard to find where we were. It's so hard. I don't think people appreciate and understand just how hard it can be when you
Well,
haven't.
you
I
know, Sean, I think you're going to meet people, comrades just like
yeah
you, who are facing difficulty in making adjustments and
mm,
finally making the contribution that they want to make inside Ukraine. So,
yeah
you know, hang with it, keep going. It's all going to be to the good, to your good and to Ukraine's good. And I know there are so many people in Ukraine who are going to help you do the job you
of
want to do.
of course.
And
Uh,
Sean, I hope you'll check back with us in a week or so and let us know how you're doing, because I'm quite certain you will have gotten over the difficult beginning, and you'll have found your sea legs, so to speak, and you'll be
yeah,
in a good place. So do let us know, okay?
I will do. I will drop down and be quiet in 2 seconds. I just feel like I did not. I lost my military experience over the last 10 years, and I did not prepare actually for coming here as well as I should have, and known I should have, because I do have the experience of the military, and I lost that somewhere along the line, and I felt so guilty. I still feel guilty, but I shouldn't, because I had to take time out for myself to
Yep,
get better.
that's right.
Because yeah, yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
So let
I,
so as I said, you go. You know what? First of all, what it must be like 4 o'clock in the morning there, right? Go get a
uh,
little bit of sleep, get a little bit of sleep, and you'll be back in touch with Frontline Kitchen, and I'm sure in a few days things will be looking better. It sounds like you've already gotten through the worst of it, honestly.
yeah,
So
yeah,
thank
yeah.
you, thank you so much for coming up to speak. We really appreciate it.
Thank
God
you.
bless. Okay.
I just want to give a shout out to all you guys. You're absolutely phenomenal. What you do on Maria Report is amazing. What Frontline Kitchens and Richard nowadays doing. Richard's phenomenal for what
Yes,
he's
agreed.
doing. It's unbelievable. He's went beyond and above and beyond what he should be doing, and I find him a complete inspiration. And I say that about everybody at Frontline Kitchens. I just want to say that, yeah, it's not as easy as everybody thinks. Yeah, come and volunteer, do this, do that, but until you're actually here and you do that, and you find your way in a different country where you've never been before, and you do not, you
Well,
haven't, you've not,
Sean, I think the most important thing you said tonight is prepare yourself. So be prepared when you go to volunteer, if that's what you decide to do.
thank
But I really do thank you for being with us tonight on Maria Report. I agree with Robin. Get some sleep. It's late. It's 4 a.m. Uh, the
I know.
sun's the sun's going to be up in less than 2 hours, and I want to wish you a good and productive day as the day dawns in Ukraine. So thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you. And yes, I'm going to go and kick my ass into bed and get up tomorrow and turn up tomorrow. Now my feet are fine.
Very,
But yeah,
Good plan. Good night.
yeah,
Sleep
yeah,
well,
yeah.
Sean. Good
I
night.
will do. I'll listen on as I go back and go to sleep. I'll keep you on in my ear. I'll fall asleep listening to you guys, which is a good thing.
yeah,
All
But
right.
Indeed.
that's what I do. Good
That's
night,
what
yeah,
I
Sean.
do too. Good night, Sean.
but I'm gonna, and I just want to say, for anybody considering coming out here, best poor performance prevents. Well, you know the saying. I don't have to go into it. It's like, yeah, it's like it's not something I actually thought I would have to actually prepare for in the way I would done in the military. But yes, it is. It is 100% exactly the same.
That's good advice, Sean. Prepare
Yeah,
yourself. Make
yeah,
a
yeah.
decision. Make a decision. Volunteer. Prepare. Thanks, Sean, and good night.
Right, right. Good night, guys, and I will listen on, go to bed, and I'll put my head down and everybody else. And yeah, it's not that easy, yeah?
All right. Thanks so much.
So,
Over to Brian. Brian's had his hand up patiently. Thanks so
yeah,
much, Sean. Have a good night.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Sean, if it makes you feel any better, I'm jealous because you're there and I'm not, right? I help as much as I can from where I'm at, but you're there and I'm not. And tomorrow you're going to be able to, you're physically, sounds like you're getting better and you're going to be able to go and work with the frontline kitchen people. You'll be able to do that. I won't tomorrow. So, but it actually the good, raises up a good point to your point, Robin and Alan and Sean mentioned it as well. The importance of preparatory work and doing research, and the great thing about this particular space. And other Ukraine related spaces too is that the networking and the contacts you get. I mean, you can do a lot of homework and a lot of planning in advance because of the access that you have to great people here in the Maria Report. And and Alan and Robin, maybe and Yehuda, maybe that's worth delving into a little bit at some point. And maybe you already have, and I just didn't attend that particular time. But even doing a volunteering in Ukraine best practices session within the Maria Report, and maybe get some people who are in country or people that have done some volunteering in the back, in the past, in the recent past, and get some best practices together, on terms of, a checklist of things, and oh, I wish I would have known this before I got in country. That may be worth spending some bandwidth on, and with a little bit of planning, with the contacts that the various folks here have made, and working with the volunteer organizations that are already there, it probably wouldn't. It would be probably a good discussion you could have for a couple hours just on that topic, right? And then you could point to it post talk for that particular segment for people as uh, uh, a object lesson for people who are interested in volunteering in Ukraine. Just a thought based on Sean's experience.
Yeah, Ryan, uh, who's a former co-host who volunteers in Ukraine. He's going back this summer. He's helped a lot of us think about how to prepare to volunteer. And Scott Harper, who has also volunteered in Ukraine, uh, he was very clear about his experience and how he prepared. And both Ryan and Scott can tell you that it is the most extraordinary experience they've probably had in their lives. Meaningful and and making a difference in Ukraine no matter how old you are, you volunteer in Ukraine, you are going to grow as a person. Cece, go ahead. Cece. Okay, so Cece's having audio problems, and this gives me a chance to welcome up Yehuda. Welcome.
Thank you, Alan. I just wanted to give a bit of an update. It looks like great news to report all around the Ukrainian front. The great news is not the casualties, obviously not. Ukrainians are fighting and dying and being wounded and maimed for their country's liberation. However, on a big picture, in the big picture of things, every front that the Ukrainians are fighting the Russians on, the Ukrainians are advancing. They are moving slowly and methodically. They are not just advancing into whatever terrain. They're seizing key terrain, key ground, vital ground. They are in the east, positioning themselves in very, very advantageous positions in and around Bakhmut, all the way up to Kremina. In the south, in Zaporizhia, center south, they are tightening their lines. They are getting far closer to the main defensive positions that the Russians are manning, and more reinforced. And yet they're only using 20-25% of the combat effective forces that they have stationed in the area, ready to conduct that explosive break-in and penetration, I suspect. So what's really good about this is all across the board, Ukraine is advancing, and not just in a haphazard manner, in a very, very methodical, intelligent approach. The Russians are panicking. They are moving troops around in a very, very big way. Troops coming down from Kremina VDV battalion, unknown strength, to reinforce near Bakhmut. And this is a very good sign. If they're moving troops from 500 kilometers away, uh, it means that doesn't say much for the troops that are 20 and 30 kilometers away from the position that the Russians want to reinforce. The Russian forces that are reinforced are all pretty much dismounted infantry. In some bizarre situations, the Ukrainians in the first couple of the defensive positions and trenches in those defensive battle positions that the Ukrainians have liberated, they're finding 100-year-old Soviet Russian weapons from before World War One. It's phenomenal, right? They're throwing people. When we said the Russians are not prepared, that they're literally just throwing conscripts with very little training, and in some cases, poor weaponry. I don't even think I thought that we were looking at a rifle of bolt action made in 1890. That's where the Russians are. And there was like 40 million of them made back then, which is a big number. So we're talking museum, night at the museum style behavior by the Russians. It's phenomenal, but I also suspect that the better armed Russians are going to be on their main defensive battle positions in and around the Zaporizhia area. But it doesn't matter, because the one thing we haven't seen, which we will see when that time comes for the Ukrainians to conduct a break-in, then they're going to do it. And with a lot of artillery, massed artillery, the Ukrainians are going to rain down a righteous fire on those Russian positions. It's going to knock them out. It'll either destroy them, it'll fix them, it'll suppress them, or neutralize them. They won't be able to do much. And that's when you see the Ukrainians move in. The alternative would be if they just keep going, kilometer by kilometer by kilometer. If it's effective, why not? And maybe the Russian line will break. But at some point, they're going to have to punch in and move large amounts of forces. And I hope that day comes soon. Some people suspect in Zaporizhia, so I'm getting one of my crystal ball predictions. Some people speculate that it'll happen in the Zaporizhia area, Tokmak area, soon. the next couple of weeks, a week, maybe 2 days, maybe a month. But they're getting awfully close to where they want to be. We talked about that. They weren't just going to punch through right away. They were going to shape up. And they were going to shape their enemy a little more, and they want to be in areas that when they do step off that line of departure, that they're going to be in the most advantageous place they can be. So this is really good news. It bodes well. Combined with ever declining morale in the Russian ranks, the gong show that is Russia internally, which we've seen, the disruption to logistics, et cetera, et cetera. It certainly bodes poorly for Russia, thank God, and we're seeing more and more advances all around. It's daily, and it's incredible actually. So good luck to them, and I think that for those who are watching this for a year and a half, and when you heard things spoken here and other places about Ukrainian counteroffensive after the culmination of Russian forces in the late summer, this is what you're waiting for, and this is what's coming. It's the sound of freedom roaring across the Ukrainian valleys and fields. So it's coming, Alan and Robin. So just wanted to share that with you with that
Yeah.
update.
Yeah, thank you, Yehuda. And the amazing thing, as one of those memes said, is they're doing all of our old shit. It's if we gave them the weaponry that they needed, they could really work miracles. They're working miracles with all the stuff that we had out in the desert that was shipped over to them.
Oh, they're doing miracles. Look, that's another conversation about when and where, but I'm confident the Ukrainian military is confident they have what it takes right now. They can always use more. There aren't all these stories of bazillions of Ukrainian weapons being destroyed. That's just not true. 30 vehicles from one brigade being damaged and then recovered and repaired. That's not the end of the world. It really isn't. So you just have to wait and see. There is pardon me, it's been a long weekend. There is a man who I will honestly, I just say he's crazy. He's a former cavalry officer, armored officer from the United States. His name is Douglas McGregor. I really believe this man is sitting somewhere on another planet. He keeps doing these updates, or has people interview him, and he just says the strangest things, like Ukraine is definitely destroyed. All of their troops are dead. They'll never be able. He said that, like, as of today, they will never be able to attack any Russian positions. And it's just like, I don't know where this person is. Even Kherson was being taken. Ukrainians they got 4 people left basically. They're gonna die. They're destroyed. The reason why I pointed out is because it's Russian propaganda. The person hates the United States, hates his own country, I guess, whatever. And he's convinced that he probably hates himself. A little bit of self-loathing. I would if I was him, but anyway, that's another story. It's bizarre. You're going to see more of it. So it's kind of interesting to point out the different types of Russian disinformation. The Russian disinformation that I suspect we'll see from the slightly more educated people than this Mr. Colonel retired Douglas MacArthur or McGregor or something. Douglas MacArthur or someone else. That type of information will be the Poles are fighting, the British are fighting, the Americans are fighting, it's NATO wearing Ukrainian uniforms. We're not really losing to the Ukrainians because obviously they're horrible and inferior. It's actually all of NATO that's fighting. They're going to say stuff like this. That's the kind of Russian disinformation you can expect. Then you have the strange Russian disinformation that just denies reality. In their world, Russia is 2 kilometers from Kyiv. They're right about to take it or something, right? It's bizarre. But if you do want to hurt yourself and you're just feeling exceptionally masochistic tonight, you can go on YouTube and check out this guy. What is his name? Did I say Douglas McGregor? It just blows your mind. And he talks to you so straight. Yes, the Ukrainians have almost no forces left. They will be destroyed. They cannot. Russians will not. It's an amazing situation, and I would challenge you to, if you do want to see what other types of propaganda there are, because you'll see it here online too. You might want to check it out. Not for the faint of heart, Alan. Over to you.
Imagine how the Russians will feel when the 4 surviving Ukrainians defeat the last 100,000 Russian soldiers inside Ukraine. I mean, that is a true David Goliath story, if I've ever heard
Well,
one.
they're probably going to add Malcolm Nance and Sarah Cirillo there, so in their minds, that's even it's even worse, right? And then the Polish mercenaries. They have this obsession with Polish mercenaries. It's the strangest thing I've ever heard. They're really the 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 Russian bigots who hate Ukraine. They're not big fans of the Poles either. So it's fine. I find it a little weird that they're really worked up. It really bothers them. So it's yeah, I think a lot of people over there are going to be surprised when the Russians retreat or gently walked back to the international border. They're going to say, this is exactly where Putin wanted to be, right where on the border. That's exactly perfectly right. You can't make it up.
Well, and they've demilitarized the Ukrainian military completely. They don't have any of that Russian crap anymore. And now all they have are Western weapons. So they were successful in that case too.
It's pretty good to just move the goalposts around and then declare victory. But anyway, I also think that the recent mutiny attempt is just a perfect example and symbol of just how weak Russia is. Russia is not, it's not just a terrorist state, Alan. It's a failed state. Um, you know, Putin letting Prigozhin walk away. Now he's closing his businesses down. He's doing this. He's doing that. But I mean, you know, who would have thunk it? Russians turning on Russians and marching up to 200 kilometers away from Moscow and then stopping because of a deal they made. That's how Putin has to do it. Then the 2-3 days of dithering and conflicting statements and excuses, and it wasn't a mutiny. It was a mutiny. Or they walked away from it. We made a deal. No, our brave soldiers defended our capital, and that's why we stopped the mutiny. It's a bizarro world even for the most hardened Putin supporter. So political scientists around the world, if you watch any of the reputable news sources that have this commentary, they bring them up. They're just like, wow, this is crazy. We would have never thought it. Putin's done. The blood's in the water. The sharks are circling. Not even Putin's, closest supporters think that Putin's strong. Putin seems to be the nominal head of a mafia syndicate, and who rules by, you know, getting the collective support of all of his crime bosses. And now, when it counts, he fails, right? You would, and if you had mentioned this to anyone, any Kremlinologist, or any Russia watcher, any of these think tanks, if you told them a year ago that 2,000 troops of the PMC are going to march on Moscow at some point, and you were to see that, and you ask them what would happen, you would hear the Russians, Rosguardia, this and that unit will do this and do that, and they'll just destroy them and murder them, and then they'll kill their families, and then they'll destroy the towns that they were from. They will do all of this stuff. If that's what they would say, if you told them that Putin would get on the phone with them and say, "Pretty please, can you not attack Moscow? Pretty please, can you not attack Moscow?" Then they would think you're crazy. Not a person in the world would have ever called that. That's how insane this is. This is the most unexpected solution or situation that would have happened ever in our lifetimes. This is we cannot underestimate or how do I say this? We would be doing a disservice if we were to not explain just how shocking this is. This is a change, a watershed moment, not just in Russian history, but in how we as the West view Russia or the Soviet Union. The most colossal threat to Western democracy for 180 years is literally non existent. It's huge, it's enormous. No one would have ever thunk it. It is absolute. We have to say it. We have to keep repeating it because we will see it over and over again. Alan, I pass it back to you.
I was just going to say, Yehuda, picking up on your phrase, Russia, a failed state. It was a failed state when the Soviet Union collapsed. and the West tried to save it and reform it and failed. Now, Russia is just a failed state, and we should let it fail. Pure and simple. There is no saving Russia. There's no reforming Russia. It's something, if they want to do, they have to do themselves, but they should get no help from any democracy in the world. No help whatsoever.
Yeah, 100%, Alan. I mean, what we need to do is build a virtual wall high enough to keep them from ever being able to rearm and to keep them from causing any more damage. They've done enough over the last several hundred years.
Yeah, they have. They've done more than enough damage in Ukraine. The world is watching and sees it, but also in Syria, in Chechnya, in Moldova, in Georgia. That they are a pariah state
Yeah.
and a failed state.
Let me give you an example, Alan. I'm going to give you a stupid example. Imagine Guatemala sends its police force to invade the United States, and as they're approaching the Mexican border with the United States, Joe Biden gets on the phone with the leader of these guys and says, listen, you can take New Mexico, just don't come to Washington. We can work this out. Just take New Mexico. All right, are you good with that? Okay, great. Now, imagine how crazy that sounds to every American in here. That's exactly what's happened with Russia a week ago. It's crazy town. Absolute madness. There is no, forget the mask fell off. The mask fell off, Putin's face fell off, his skeleton parts fell off. None of this makes any sense. It is such an enormous demonstration of utter weakness. And some people have said pathos. But that's another issue. It is absolutely stunning, and it's heartwarming. Ukraine. This is an own goal by Russia. It's you cannot underestimate. They will write. Political scientists, political theorists, those who study European and Russian politics and international relations will look at that week as a week that the world changed. February 24th, 2022. And what was it? June, gosh, I don't know. I'm not good with dates. What is it? June 24th. That Saturday. It really will go down in infamy. It was a demonstration of the complete lack of power and control that Putin has. And this is a man who has made his career out of being considered a strong man. I'm the big boss. People I don't like. Hey, you worked for the KGB 20 years ago, and you're talking at a British university. Your name's Skripal. That's it. I'm just going to send chemical weapons to another country, which is like literally like declaring war. I'm just going to do that because I'm bad. I'm a bad man. I can do whatever I want. I'm Vladimir Putin. And then a gang of rapists and pedophiles and murderers that he's paying to attack Ukraine decide that they don't like the way he's running the war, so they're going to just drive to Moscow? We're just going to drive to Moscow. Guys, get in the trucks. We're going to take over the Kremlin. All right, let's go. And Putin's, there's actually a lot of very decent information out there that actually says that Putin was mad. Actually, Lukashenko said it. Putin was mad that Prigozhin wouldn't take Putin's call. Pretty please, Prigozhin, pick up my call. I don't want you to burn my city. It would really suck for everyone. It would look really bad. I'm having a bad day. You know that song, You Had a Bad Day. You take one down. You want to be Prigozhin and drive into town. And then he gets a phone call from Putin. Finally, he picks up. And Putin's like, listen, I won't kill your family, okay? And please don't destroy my country. You want to go to Belarus? You can have Belarus. No one likes Lukashenko. And he's like, fine, I'll go to Belarus. All jokes aside, it is truly phenomenal. That expression of weakness, that expression of confusion, that dithering, and then the post-mutiny attempt wrap-up where Putin If you watch Russian TV or news or Telegram, you see the back and forth. Shocking. But he doesn't fire Shoigu. He sidelines him. He doesn't sideline him. Then, what else did he do? He awards medals to everyone. He's got an entire group of soldiers who are sitting in a square near the Kremlin, and they look confused. He's like, "I want to thank you guys. You're all heroes of Russia. You saved the day." You got a guy who's a painter. Another guy is like an army cook, and he's like, "What's going on? Why are we getting these awards?" Right? So you got these guys asking what's going on, but he literally just elevated thousands of Russian soldiers who didn't even do anything to hero status, because he was able to bribe Prigozhin out of not attacking the Kremlin. The world has changed for the better, I think. The mask is slipped. If there was a bad guy dictator club in the world, and Putin considered himself to be the boss of, they're not looking at him with a lot of respect. Sorry, Alan.
Alan,
Well, I guess
you still with us? I hope.
maybe,
Oh, I hope.
maybe I
I
hurt
hope
his feelings.
we may be having Twitter pox. No, we may be having Twitter pox
I
because
thought
it's on
I
here.
thought maybe Alan had
You know,
dreams of being in the evil dictator social club, and
that's probably it.
now he realizes there's
And
not a lot of love there.
Yehuda, I was thinking one of the things that Putin just doesn't seem to have kept up with is the fact that this Potemkin village approach to history, it worked at one time. Lavrov would tell his lies, and others would tell the lies, and there wasn't anything to refute it really, even if we knew that it was garbage. But now it's all on YouTube. It's all on TikTok. People know what's going on. It's a lot harder to snow people than it used to be.
Yeah, but this again, it is monumentous even that that Russia Putin specifically has been called out as being completely incompetent. I mean, it's one thing to be to say you're an ineffective American president. You failed to get both sides of the aisle to do blah blah blah. But when you control everything and you're supposedly like the dictator for life, and people like get murdered for the smallest things, and you're that nuts and you act that nuts, and you can't stop a bunch of thugs, you have to tear the road up around Moscow. You have to start sending, backhoes. What do you call them? Excavators, backhoe. We call them backhoes. Whatever we call them backhoes.
I don't know
Call
that
them
stuff,
backhoe.
but yeah, something that digs up roads
Yeah,
anyway.
and or anything can dig up road, and then you're like, wow, how the mighty have fallen. Some might say, or we've realized they weren't that mighty. Go figure. And we'll wait for our friend to get back. No.
Yeah, he's trying to come back out now. Hopefully soon. Yeah, no, it really is astonishing how obvious all of this is now. Oh, Alan, are you back?
I'm back. My app
Oh,
crashed.
how nice. Yes, we gathered. um, we were just talking about the implosion of the Russian Federation on live TV, and that it's not Putin is not able to hide what's going on the way he might have at one point. Also, I think Yehuda too. He's making really bad calls. He's unforced errors to some extent. He's making himself look even worse than he might otherwise, which is great.
Oh, Robin, did we just lose you?
Oh no, I'm here. I was at the end of a thought, but I can always keep on talking.
Well, Yehuda, go ahead, Yehuda.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, look, a lot of people are doing the guessing and talking about, what's going on in Russia now. And I think what people are starting to realize, and you're hearing it from Bill Browder. I don't know if you know who Bill Browder is. If you don't know, smart guy. I think his lawyer was killed by Putin. His name was Mr. Magnitsky. They made an act. Our friends at the Helsinki Commission, you might know a couple of them: Kyle Parker, Bakhti, Nishanov, a bunch of good people there. Um, uh, well, Kyle actually, I think, is the author of that act. He's the man who pushed it through. Um, he was on some program. I think he was on Australian 60 Minutes recently, or it might be 06 minutes in Australia because it's backwards, underwater, underground. And he gave some really good insight, and that is that that there's a lot more to it. Shoigu probably has a lot of power, and he's invested in different ways, and Putin can't just dump him. Prigozhin has a lot of power and affects certain things in Russia. There is information out that his media empire has collapsed overnight. There are reports that say his food company catering service, like it's a $10 billion contract or something with the Russian military, is kaput. All sorts of stuff is going on. So clearly the knives are out from Mr. Putin to Prigozhin in some ways. But, you might say, why didn't he do it on the day one, right? Well, maybe things had to change. Maybe things were going on. But we know it's happening now. And guess what? All chaos that happens in Russia is beneficial for Ukraine. If the Wagner head there, Prigozhin, if his company is the company that currently feeds the Russian army, and even although they poorly feed them, that causes problems in the supply chain right now. This is great. This is fantastic. The more confusion in Russia, the better for Ukrainians. They're going to keep doing what they're doing on the schedule that they want to do it at. But I can only promise you this: that the situation in Russia will only get worse and worse by the day.
And feeding into that, the Russian Federation Council has made some news. You'd think that with all this going on, they would be concerned about the future of the country, but not. But they're not. They with a short paragraph, with his troops losing ground on the front, attack drones swooping deep into Russian territory, and Russian generals suspected of supporting last week's mutiny, you'd think the Russian upper house of parliament would have more to worry about than conspiracy theories. Well, they don't. They actually are saying that the Ukrainians have developed combat nits and that they're using these to bioweapons against the Ukrainians. So this is what and this was
Combat
this was
what?
a
Combat myths?
nits, like lice.
Gnats?
Nits, NITS. Your kids have never had lice. You're lucky. In Israel, everybody gets them. But anyway, yeah. So, and as I say, despite international snickering, the Kremlin keeps promoting crackpot nonsense about Ukraine in conspiracy with the United States, of course, genetically developing animals and insects as biological weapons against Mother Russia. So,
It's because
talk about a dysfunction.
it's because of their complete denial. They can't admit they're losing.
100%.
They make up excuses. The dog. No, the dog didn't just eat my breakfast. The dog, ate my brain, and that's why I didn't do it, because my brain was eaten because the
Exactly.
dog ate it. What a bad dog! And the teacher's looking at the kid. Well, how did your brain's in your skull, and you clearly have one because you're talking to me and not dead. No, it's what happened. Every story is stranger than the last. It's almost as if they think their people are absolute, pickle brains. That anyone would believe this, bio Smurfs and bio grasshoppers and bio this and bio. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely insane.
Absolutely. Who I really feel sorry for? It's the parodyists who are trying to make a parody of this. I mean, they were parody of themselves. In fact, I was talking with a Ukrainian friend of mine, and he was saying, if they weren't genocidal maniacs, it's like Benny Hill or something. I mean, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, it's almost as if Russian propagandists, they watch American movie, like they watch the Marvel series and they get their ideas from there. Like Ant-Man, amazing. An ant that's actually a super soldier. We'll just say that to our people. It's grasshoppers, it's mosquitoes, it's who's gotten a lot of criticism and ridicule over the years is the Arab world. They've gotten a lot of ridicule for their propaganda. Israeli sharks program to attack tourists in Egypt to sort of scare the tourists away to hurt the economy. It's not their playbook. That's the Soviet playbook. Ridiculous and crazy stories. This is something Soviets have been doing for generations. They've passed that information, that style of warfare. Maybe it's just the idea of if we just say things that are so bat poop crazy, we have a chance of confusing enough of the people some of the time, right? Not all the people all the time, but some of them some of the time. Hopefully enough, and we just put it out there, and people think, gosh, if it wasn't for those NATO biolabs and those freaking biologically engineered grasshoppers, our troops would be in Kiev. It makes perfect sense to me now. Not that I didn't get it before, but when you mention the bio mosquitoes, it's making sense. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, Timothy Snyder writes, about this in the Road to Unfreedom, that this is a feature of the system, is throwing so much crap at that people just throw up their hands and withdraw from any opinion about anything, because it's the both sidesism and everything. People get so confused that they decide they just I'm going to worry about my own little area, and I'm not going to think about this stuff. And it's he says this is a feature of the system.
I'll give you an example. I'm not an American, Canadian.
We know. Thank you
Figured
for all
out.
that smoke you've been sending our
It's
way,
not my
by the way.
fault. It's the Ukrainian bio grasshoppers. They
That's it.
started the fires there. Pizzagate. So people don't get it. Russia's been attacking the United States for almost 20 years in the disinfo sphere, with stories, with weird things. Now, it might be a guy who sounds like this. I'm Billy Bob, and I believe I'm a one percenter militia guy, and diddle do, and take my guns, and lock her up, put her in jail, referencing Hillary Clinton, and all sorts of crazy stuff. The Who, the globalists, they want trying to turn my kids transsexual, and like all these things. They don't come from just anywhere. Did anyone ever stop and go, hey, I don't remember this in the late 90s. I don't remember people having these crazy thoughts. You might see a person, a mentally ill person, yelling at the wall or the sidewalk on your, city street on your way to work, maybe. But did you think that they just all got online at the same time, found each other, and now they're doing this? Or maybe there's a coordinated effort to just sow dissent, right? Especially with the troll bot farms. Now, you might say, well, that's a conspiracy in itself. Well, it's not. It's pretty well known that they do it, and the reality is, like, normal people will just look and go, it's so crazy what's being pushed that no real person would believe it. Well, let me give you an example. I remember hearing about Pizzagate. Now, correct me, forgive me, American listeners, if I'm wrong, but I understood it was a belief that the Clintons, maybe the Rothschilds, got to throw them in there sometimes, that they were kidnapping and